For today's video, we're talking about subtracting mixed numbers. So we've already added mixed numbers. Today we're going to work on subtracting them. So our learning target is I can subtract mixed numbers. Make sure you're writing down your I know. This is your time to reflect a little bit and think about what do you already know about subtracting mixed numbers. You know how to subtract fractions. We know how to add mixed numbers. So we know a lot of things about this. And maybe you've subtracted mixed numbers previously as well. And there is no vocabulary today. Please make sure you write down the date. Pause the video here, make sure you have that all written down, and then you restart when you're ready to go. So similar to our last video, we're going to start with an example problem. Our example problem is going to be 8 and 5/7 minus 4 and 1/7. And again, we have a rule that I've put on your notes sheet here. Our rule is that we first subtract the fraction parts. That requires a common denominator. Then we can subtract the whole number parts. And then at the end we combine. So you'll notice this rule looks a lot like our last rule. Okay, so we're going to start just like we did last time with the fraction parts. I have 5/7 and 1/7. Okay, so to subtract my fractions, I'll do 5/7 minus 1/7. That gives me 4/7. Now that I've done the fraction parts, the next part of the rule is to do the whole number parts. So here I have 8 minus 4, which gives me 4. Now the last thing I do is I combine these things together. In this case, 4 and 4/7. That's it. Now that I've done that, I have my entire answer and I'm good. Okay? So I'm going to show you a few more examples, and this is going to really show you some of the things that can happen while we're solving these, because there are a lot of things that could happen, and I don't want you to end up confused. So our next problem is 12 and 5/6 minus 9 and 5/6. Okay? Same as before, starting with the fraction part. Here I have 5/6 minus 5/6. 5/6 minus 5/6, well, 5 minus 5 is 0. So my answer here is 0. I have nothing left from that. Okay, well, let's think about the whole numbers quick. I have 12 minus 9. 12 minus 9 equals 3. When we combine this then, well, I have 3 and I have 0. Well, adding 0 to the 3 doesn't do anything. So my answer here is simply 3. That's something that throws people off sometimes. Don't add that 0 to the end. Remember that 0 is being added to the 3, and we don't want, and 0 plus 3 is just 3. Okay? Another thing that might happen is you might get a problem with that the problem does not have common denominators. So let's say you have 5 and 3/8 minus 2 and 1/4. Okay, well, if you don't have a common denominator, we need to find a common denominator. So starting by looking at our fractions, 3/8 and 1/4, I see right away that 8 and 4, well, they have a common multiple of 8. 4 goes into 8. So I can just multiply by 2 over here. And this gives me 3/8 minus, well, 1 times 2 is 2, so that'll be 2/8. 3/8 minus 2/8 is 1/8. Just like on the last problems, now I can just do 5 minus 2 and get 3. So when I go to combine these, I have 3 and 1/8. So far, everything is really, really, really similar to when we're adding. But there's another thing that can happen, which sometimes might throw us off a little bit. And I want to show you that. So for this one, we're going to look at the problem. 9 and 1/3 minus 3 and 2/3. Okay? So let's start and see what happens. And you're going to see that sometimes these can get a little tricky. Here we're going to start with, we have 1/3 minus 2/3. Here's the deal. 1/3 minus 2/3 is not going to work for us. It's not. Okay? So since we cannot do 1/3 minus 2/3, if we try to subtract these right now, we would end up with a negative number. That's not going to help work for us because we have a mixed number. So instead of trying to deal with negative numbers and craziness or trying to subtract something bigger from something smaller, what we're actually going to do is we're going to say, okay, well, this isn't just 1/3 minus 2/3. This is 9 1/3 minus 3 2/3. So what I'm going to do, and this is really similar to when you subtract double-digit numbers, I'm going to say, okay, if I don't have enough, if 1/3 doesn't have enough to subtract, well, then I'm going to go look at this 9. And I'm going to borrow 1 away from the 9. I'm going to say, okay, 9, you're going to give me 1 whole. And you're going to turn into an 8. Now, once I do that and I have this 1 1/3 instead of just the 1/3, well, now I have 1 1/3 minus 2/3. So my next step here after I borrow is I'm going to turn 1 1/3 into a improper fraction. So 1 1/3, that's the same 4/3 minus 2/3. Well, 4/3 minus 2/3 is just 2/3. So now I've dealt with the fraction part. Going back to my whole numbers, I now do 8 minus 3, which gives me 5. My answer now at the end, I can still combine, and it's just the same, 5 2/3. The only extra step here is that when I didn't have enough in 1/3 to subtract 2/3, I turned this 9 turned into a 1 and an 8. The 1 helped me deal with the fraction part. The 8 helped me deal with the whole number part. I want to show you one more problem like this so that you can see another example of how this might work out. So for our last problem, we're going to do 8 1/6 minus 6 3/4. And if you want to pause the video here and try the problem on your own and come back at the end to see if you got it right, go ahead and do that now. For 8 1/6 minus 6 3/4, well, to follow our routine, we're going to do 1/6 minus 3/4. I know, first of all, I need a common denominator. I don't have one right now. So if I think about 6 and 4, I know that they both have a common multiple of 12. 6 times 2 is 12, so 1 times 2. That gives me 2/12 minus, all right, well, 3/4 to turn that into 12ths. 4 times 3 is 12, so I'll do 3 times 3. I'm left with 2/12 minus 9/12. Again, 2/12 minus 9/12 would be negative. I can't take 9/12 away from 2/12 without going into negative numbers, and we don't want to do that. So I'm coming back to my 8. I say, okay, 8, bye. You get to turn into a 7 and give that extra 1 to my fraction 1 2/12. Now, 1 2/12 I can turn improper. 1 2/12, well, 12 times 1 is 12, plus 2 is 14/12 minus 9/12. If you need a review of how to turn mixed numbers into improper fractions, that video was in this unit. Okay? 14 minus 9 is 5, and we have 12ths. Now that I've dealt with the fractions, I can go deal with my whole numbers. 7 minus 6 is 1. And at the end, I combine it for 1 and 5/12. Please feel free to rewatch any of the sections of this video that you need help on. This one is a little bit more complicated, so don't worry if you need a little bit of extra practice. Let me know if you need any help, and have a great day.